I'm loving this because even the students that you take in as young as 14, but
Yeah,
y'all have actually had somebody as old as 62 years old
that's correct. Our
take
oldest
the
student,
course.
when he took social studies in 2017, was 62. In 2017, he's still active.
That is amazing. So is it
He
like
works.
a breakdown of the school? Like is there like it's like 001, 002 is like there's
No
how does
001, 002, but we have a curriculum tailored to who the age demo is.
gotcha.
So if we're doing a 14 to 18, that curriculum is going to be different than an 18 and up, simply because we're trying to steer the 14 to 18s to start thinking about where they're going to go to high school slash college and put them on a path to consider sneakers during that journey.
Mm,
So they really end up gravitating towards wanting to work in that industry. The education we're giving them is helping them make those important decisions to know where to go to get the additional education and position themselves to end up in the industry, which is where we want them to end up. And then for 18 and up, depending on where those people are at their station in life, some of those folks are looking for a career change. A big space in 2020 for us and beyond, because of COVID lockdown, was we realized people hated their jobs
mm,
and wanted to go do something else.
yeah.
They were cool with their jobs while they had to commute to them and put in the 8 to 10 hours and turn around and go home. But once people were home and realized they were stuck with those jobs and doing them 10 to 12 hours a day, and then when you shut the computer off, you're still sitting in the same environment, still thinking about that job, and it
Yeah.
starts permeating your home life. People hated their jobs, so we ended up in the fortunate position of now having career retraining for folks who have the
Mm.
HR skills, the lawyers, all these folks, and again, say to them, like I said earlier, you're tired of working over there, sneaker company will gladly take you.
Mm. And do you all like offer like I saw in there that you do offer scholarships for folks who
Yep. So we have a street rate. There's a course, there's a public offering where you do have to pay, but our current initiative that we launched for Women's History Month, which is social studies strictly for the ladies, we have a couple of sponsor partners now who are going to pay the full cost for women to take it, and then we're still seeking for the future initiative. We're still seeking companies to come in and sponsor the ongoing effort to constantly educate women exclusively. So that course is history for us in that, number one, we've never offered a women's only course. Number two, it's going to be taught exclusively by one of our female alums. So no guys are going to be instructing. So the women will all be in their own exclusive space, among themselves and learning about the sneaker industry from one of their own. We want to see with, the efforts to, sort of bury a lot of the initiatives for equity and inclusion. We want to see what companies are going to be able to financially back us empowering women who can continue to push into the sneaker industry.
mm, loving that. What's like the can you like break down like a day for us?
When I walk in here every day is different.
Okay.
Like today, social studies strictly for the ladies kicks off tonight.
Okay.
Tonight's the first night. So I got in here at 9 something in the morning. I won't be leaving here until 9 at night
Oh,
because the social studies course for women starts at 6 and it's from 6 to 8.
okay.
But during the day, I'm creating content. I'm responding to emails. I'm handling registrations for our other courses like Cinema Soul, which is something that we offer for free, and you can take that every Thursday. That's sort of our intro to what we do. That Cinema Soul course, and just constantly working on keeping the partnerships that we have healthy and building more partnerships, and we have the OSD podcast return. So there's coordinating efforts on guests and marketing and promotion and stuff for that as well.
Yeah, I see that. I see y'all. I see a picture up here. Scoop Jackson.
Yep. Scoop is a good homie of ours. He was on um, our original first run of OSD. We did numbered episodes. So Scoop was on episode 366, part one.
Okay.
And then we had Wilson Smith, the first black designer in the industry, on 366, part two. Both interviewed in the same place on the same day at the Black Footwear Forum that year in Portland. Um, so that was the first run, the first tour, if you will, of OSD. But now that we're back and we're back in this new era of, YouTube and IG algorithms and TikTok and everything else, we've had to do things a little differently. So
Yeah.
even now for us, we still have our old formula that people miss in terms of the conversation and the flow of OSD. But now we have the other things to consider, like being able to, put out viral clips and, you know, video settings to make sure the algorithm maximizes your viewership. And, all of those things that we never had to worry about on the first tour when we retired. Those are all the other things that we have to work to continue to do once we finish with episodes. We just finished one with Eastside Golf. Those two brothers gave us an amazing episode. Being able to figure out what's the SEO going to look like, what kind of settings do you need to have, how do you structure on the back end this video so that even golf people find it.
Mm.
Those are the kind of things that take up our days now. But again, it's all still living in the purpose of what we've been so passionate about for decades. Between the two of us, me and D Wells, we probably owned collectively over 10,000 pairs of shoes over 40 years.
That I want to just transition, man, into the podcast because
Mm-hmm.
it's a marriage. That's
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about the podcast, man, and what you guys are doing, and give us the love on that.
So the fun thing on how it started, D approached me and said, "I want to start a podcast." And I was already in my corporate capacity working for MTV Networks. So I was already in TV and film, working on the back end of that. So I was already well versed on being able to tell these stories. My paycheck that was funding my sneaker addiction and feed my family was from working for a company that was already creating content all the time before it was called content.
Right.
So I was with it. We did it, but there was no sneaker podcast as noted, and there was no sneaker talk show. I'm saying that there was no sneaker talk show. Number one, and number two, there was sure as hell no podcast. The podcast was in its infancy then. People were still asking us when we started, what radio station do we tune into to listen to your podcast?
What radio station?
That's how new the whole thing was. So we
Damn.
ended up, really serendipitously, we ended up hosting the show in audio format on a host called TalkShoe.com. That company still exists today.
Oh wow!
TalkShoe.com. So our show was up to 50 people on the phone line, up to 250 people in an audio chat. And every Wednesday for 7 years, we ran the game.
Wow!
People wouldn't even plan in person sneaker events on a Wednesday because they knew they would miss our show.
Wow!
And because we had access to designers and all of these athletes and trainers and folks through our collective network, we're getting people as guests on the show now. We're like, oh shit, a sneaker talk show? I'm in the shoes. I want to be on.
I'll be honest.
So we ended up, the show ended up being sort of the business news of sneaker culture because we weren't just sitting there talking about the latest Jordan release and doing a bunch of the crap that all the other sneaker blogs were doing. Because if you go through scroll through their rolls of content from back then, all you saw was Nike Jordan, Nike, Nike, Nike Jordan, 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 Nike, Nike.
Yeah.
Everybody was just up Nike's butt because they all figured that if they report on Nike enough, they'd be able to get free shoes. And we weren't even thinking like that. We were just basically giving a voice to everybody who was in the shoes. That's what we wanted to do, is give a voice to everybody that was in the shoes. So when we did that, it took off to the tune of 10,000 to 12,000 audio downloads a week.
Wow! Wow!
Now, mind you, it's not like today's podcast mechanism where those numbers would make us millionaires right now.
Yep. Yep.
There's podcasts who aren't even doing those numbers, and those guys are making millions right now. Our numbers would easily get us millions right now from
Yep.
back then. But because we opened up this lane where people are like, oh shit, there's a talk show about sneakers. It comes on on Wednesdays. I gotta tune into this thing. And then to have a live chat. Well, our live chat was going crazy. People would buy, sell, trade, and all kind of crazy stuff was happening virtually in our live chat room while we're on the phone lines doing the show. And guests are calling in. It was really a time like where we knew we had something, and we always wanted to stay 10 steps ahead of people because we knew that at some point everybody else now was going to want to try and start doing a podcast about sneakers, which ultimately came to pass. There was a lot of people who started it and tried it, and some are still here, and some people realized that I'm not going to get all the free sneakers I was hoping to get, so they stopped making their podcasts to do something else. But we knew that we created something that once this opened up was not only going to open up a whole space for other people, but it was going to lead down a road of different opportunity for us, which it led to, which is, why we're here right now to this day. And that podcast is the alpha of all of it.